Returning from the campus, Izzy overheard the news. The Secretary of State was about to address the public. Drawn by a mix of curiosity and unease, he joined the growing crowd at the White House gates. Their faces were a tapestry of emotions, hope, confusion, and fear, all focused on the man standing solemnly before them. The Secretary's voice was measured, but the strain was unmistakable. He admitted, with carefully chosen words, that no one knew the fate of the missing people or when the electricity might return. With each sentence, the weight of the uncertainty pressed down on the crowd, the air growing heavier with every passing moment. A woman's voice pierced the tension.
Where is my son?
Another shouted, her desperation spilling into the silence.
Was it the rapture?
The Secretary hesitated, visibly grappling with the mounting speculation. He knew what many were thinking, the whispers of Jesus' followers disappearing, the young children not yet at the age of accountability, taken. Deep inside, he felt the shadow of that possibility, but he refused to acknowledge it. With a firm denial, he dismissed the idea, brushing it aside.
No, it wasn't.
And taking no more questions. Instead, he offered reassurance of
safety, food, and water.
The words were hopeful on the surface, but to Izzy, they sounded like blind optimism, a fragile attempt to restore calm to a world unraveling.
This is a time for people to remain calm.
The Secretary's voice was clear, but once again strained, reflecting the crisis.
A time for Americans to pull together, work together, and respect their fellow citizens. Think about your neighbor as yourself, and we will get through this together.
The Secretary's words rang hollow, and the people knew it. Without their basic needs being met, survival took on a new urgency. The growing uncertainty bred fear, an emotion they had already endured far too much of. And the crowd began to understand the grim reality. Everyone was looking for a savior, but no one was coming to help. They were on their own. In the days that followed, desperation escalated, resources ran thin, and survival instincts took over. Stores were emptied, shelves stripped bare as theft spiraled into violence. The fragile veneer of order began to crack, and the fight for survival consumed the city. Izzy watched as his neighborhood changed overnight. One by one, the stores around the pizzeria were boarded up. Across the street, a small convenience store stayed open a day too long. Inside, shelves were nearly bare, transactions tallied by hand as ATMs, scanners, and registers lay silent. Reminders of a world that no longer existed. Most customers stood in line patiently while some departed once they realized it was cash only. Izzy picked up a few scarce essentials, aspirin for Ira, peanut butter, and the last roll of toilet paper. The store owner's wife bagged the items with trembling hands, meeting Izzy's gaze with a mix of fear and hope.
Is this the end of the world?
She whispered.
Is this the end of the world? A question I've been asked time and again. Having the answer and comforting others through all of this, should be second nature to me. I am, after all, a man of God, with all the marks of a wise man from head to toe, externally. Always learning, never coming to the knowledge of the truth. At the same time, there is nothing natural about any of this. This snatching away, as the university students call it, and everything that has followed. This lightning storm transformed the world overnight. My mind goes to an idea that once captured my imagination. America. It's not just a location on a map but an idea where one could be free to pursue their dreams, to be their own person. The American dream is no more.
Before Izzy could answer the woman's question, a customer behind him pleaded for help, explaining she had no cash. But the owner, helpless to give away what little remained, refused her, urging her to go to the shelters.
I did. For 5 hours. I got nothing.
Other customers confirmed the predicament.
Then wait for the electricity to come back on,
The store owner said.
We'll starve to death before the electricity comes back on.
Anger simmered in the line, and as Izzy exited, he knew the desperation was on the verge of spilling over. Later that night, the desperation did indeed turn violent. The very customers turned away earlier returned to the convenience store, their anger now fueled with firearms. They held the store owner at gunpoint, looting what was left. On their way out, the gunman dragged the owner out of his store. His wife followed behind them, shouting,
Please help!
One of the gunmen followed her eye line. Izzy began to step forward, but Ira quickly pulled him back. Ira insisted Izzy stay out of sight as the violence escalated, and soon after, 2 gunshots rang out, piercing the quiet night. As fear gripped them, Izzy and Ira realized it was only a matter of time until the mob came for them. The city was unraveling, and with it, any semblance of the world they once knew, disappearing. The chaos spread. This unthinkable disregard for others' property and human life played out more like a violent video game than real life. Shops were ransacked, every survival item scavenged, as people hoarded gasoline, propane, batteries, and water. Everyone knew resources would not be replenished anytime soon. Washington became a barter economy, where even basic items were traded like currency. Gangs rose to control resources. They ranged from rowdy, lawless youth to more organized groups to everyday men just trying to survive. These everyday people turned from beggars to looters to killers. The streets were ruled by those willing to kill to survive. One night, they came for the pizzeria. Izzy watched as a flashlight's beam swept across the ceiling, tracing a slow path down the wall. The sound of glass shattering in the kitchen broke the silence, and in the dim light, Izzy and Ira saw their sanctuary had been breached. A man burst in, his gun aimed squarely at Ira. Behind him, others ransacked what little supplies remained. With no way to defend themselves, Izzy and Ira were at their mercy. One of the intruders locked eyes with Izzy, leveling his pistol. The hammer clicked, the cold sound of finality. Staring down the barrel of the gun, Izzy's body betrayed him. Every instinct screamed to fight, but he couldn't move, he couldn't breathe, paralyzed. It felt as though he was in a headlock, the life squeezing out of him. The world collapsed into a single, high-pitched ringing in his ear. Suddenly, the beam of a patrolman's flashlight swept across the room from outside. The intruders retreated, cursing under their breath. But before leaving, one spat on the floor, hurling an anti-Semitic slur that cut deeper than any bullet could. Izzy was left trembling, his breath coming in shallow gasps, while Ira surveyed the damage. The weight of what just happened, and what was to come, sat heavy in the room. Ira, his gaze fixed and steady, spoke with a quiet urgency. "Pack what you can," he said, his words barely above the sound of the gust of wind that blew through the broken door, snuffing out the flickering candle beside him. The walls of Yuri's pizzeria had provided safety, just like the thick glass that separated people from animals at the zoo. Inside, they had been shielded from the big, frightening, and violent world outside. Their last sense of safety was gone. Ira had repeatedly cautioned Izzy to remain out of sight, but he didn't listen. Consequently, the barriers that kept them safe had come crashing down. At the same time, the wall between them went back up. Ira didn't say anything about the hardships of being on the streets. Neither did Izzy. But he knew. He had put Ira's life in jeopardy. Ira was haunted by these recent events, his face reflecting in a broken window as he studied himself. He was lean and haggard, suffering from starvation. Izzy knew Ira's mind was tormented. His spirit was worn down by deeper wounds, ones that went beyond the physical. Years before, at the Temple Mount, an assassin's bullets had ripped through Ira's body, ending his chance to serve in his coveted role as high priest. He had been left scarred and resentful, his faith shaken. Now, his health deteriorated further, his labored breaths revealing just how frail he had become. Together they made their way to a nearby shelter, but it too was overcrowded and ill-equipped. The Secretary of State's promises had remained hollow, and Izzy and Ira's reality had transformed into a makeshift refugee camp. Gangs of all kinds swarmed this camp at night. These violent men knew that if they controlled the water and food supply, they could get whatever they wanted, including sex. In this desperate world, those who held power dictated the terms. People mainly turned to bartering to try to get their basic needs. After only 2 weeks of scarcity, prostitution had sadly become commonplace. What these men couldn't negotiate for, they simply took. Izzy and Ira found themselves on the edges of a shattered society, watching as the fragile threads of everything they had once known slowly unraveling. The world around them felt unrecognizable, its familiar rhythm replaced by pandemonium and despair. Each clung to memories of life that now felt forever out of reach, a world slipping further and further away with every passing moment.